You're sitting in a motel room in Massachusetts. It smells like carpet cleaner and old coffee. On both beds, every surface, every inch of space, there are lottery tickets. Hundreds of thousands of them. You and your wife of 50 years have been sorting them since 7:30 in the morning. It is now nearly midnight. Your fingers are paper cut. Your back aches. You find another winner. You put it in the pile. You are in your 60s. You drove 900 miles from Michigan to get here. You are not a criminal. You are not a hedge fund. You are a retired convenience store owner from a town with one stoplight and a population of 1,900 people. And you have figured out something that the state of Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and the entire American lottery industry somehow missed. The lottery is not gambling. Not this one. Not right now. Not for you. But let's go back. Before the motel. Before the tickets. Before the $26 million. Let's go back to Michigan. To a kid who couldn't read properly, but could solve math problems that stumped university students. You are 10 years old, and you already see the world differently from everyone around you. You grow up in Michigan. Small towns. Factory country. Your name is Gerald Selby, but everyone calls you Jerry. As a child, you're dyslexic. Reading is a real struggle, but a standardized test shows you can solve mathematics problems at the level of a college undergraduate. Teachers don't know quite what to make of you. You don't see chaos. You see patterns. Numbers sit still for you in a way that words never do. You go to Athens High School. You meet a girl named Marge. You fall for her completely in the way that only happens at 17. You marry her on November 7th, 1956, while you're still a high school senior. She is the steady one. You are the one who looks at everything. Store shelves, factory schedules, odds, ratios, and immediately starts calculating. You earn a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Western Michigan University, then an MBA. Your career is quiet. Chemist at a sewage plant, pharmaceutical salesman, cereal packaging designer, shift manager at Kellogg's, decent pay, low profile. The puzzle-solving brain gets applied to whatever's in front of you, and the problem usually loses. In the early 1980s, you look at 32 different stores before choosing one. A convenience store on Main Street in Evart, Michigan, population 1,900. One stoplight. You install Evart's first lottery machine. Within a few years, you're selling $300,000 worth of lottery tickets per year. You run the corner store for 17 years. Jerry on the floor, Marge on the books. 6 kids raised. Steady life. In 2000, you sell the store. Jerry is 64. Marge is 63. You retire. The plan, put your feet up. See what comes next. It's 2003, 3 years into retirement. One ordinary morning, you walk back into the corner store, the one you sold, to say hello to the new owners. On the counter, there's a brochure, a marketing flyer for a brand new Michigan State lottery game called Windfall. You pick it up. You start reading. Windfall works like most lotteries. Players pick 6 numbers, hope they match the draw. Jackpot grows week by week, except for one thing. One specific thing printed right there in the rules. If the jackpot reaches $5 million and nobody wins, instead of rolling over again, the money rolls down, redistributed to everyone who matched 5 numbers, 4 numbers, 3 numbers. You read it once. You read it again. In less than 3 minutes, you will say this later, on camera, to a 60 Minutes correspondent, and he won't quite believe you. In less than 3 minutes, you see it. During a roll-down week, the expected value of each ticket flips. The lottery stops being a lottery. It becomes, mathematically, a guaranteed positive return investment, as long as you buy enough tickets to cover enough combinations. You run the numbers in your head on the walk back to your car. $1,100 spent on 1,100 tickets. During a roll-down, one 4-number winner pays $1,000. 18 or 19 3-number winners pay $50 each. Total return. roughly $1,900 on a $1,100 investment. You sit in the car for a moment. The only thing I found really remarkable, you will say later, is that nobody else seemed to grasp it. You don't tell Marge yet. Not immediately. You want to test it first. A roll down is announced. You buy $3,600 worth of windfall tickets. You wait for the draw. You win $6,300. You buy $8,000 worth. You win nearly double. Then you tell Marge. You sit her down. You show her the math. You show her the brochure. You show her the results from the first 2 rounds. She listens. She looks at the numbers. She does not look surprised. It didn't surprise me, she'll say later, because as long as nobody wins and you win money, you could see the numbers. That is Marge. Steady. Precise. She has been keeping books since the corner store. She understands a balance sheet. She understands what you're showing her. You are both in your mid-60s. Your fingers still work. Your minds are sharp. And the state of Michigan has just accidentally built a machine that prints money for anyone patient enough to read the instructions carefully. You go all in. You play Windfall 12 times in Michigan. 12 roll downs. 12 wins. The money grows. You invite your 6 grown children in. Then you do something that makes this story different from every story like it. You share it with your neighbors. You form a corporation. GS Investment Strategies, LLC. Shares at $500 each. Friends, family, people you've known for decades in Evart. The grandchildren put in 1 share, 2 shares. Local people who trusted you at the corner store trust you now. The group eventually reaches 32 members. Every transaction is recorded. You pay your taxes completely, on time, every time. When a roll down comes, Jerry runs the math. Marge runs the operation. You drive to the lottery retailer. You stand at the machine for hours, buying hundreds of thousands of $2 tickets. Then, you load them into bags and drive to the motel. Then, you sort. Every ticket, by hand. You and Marge sit across from each other on the motel beds, going through stacks in the early morning light, checking numbers, pulling winners, building piles. One session takes 12 full days, starting at 7:30 each morning. There is no glamour in this room. No champagne, no penthouse. Just 2 retired people from Michigan with paper-cut fingers, doing arithmetic the state didn't know it was offering. When Michigan shuts Windfall down in 2005, declining ticket sales, not fraud, a family member tips you off. Massachusetts has a nearly identical game. Cash Windfall. Same roll-down mechanic. Lower cap, just $2 million, meaning roll-downs happen more often. Jerry runs the numbers. Cash Windfall is an even better deal. The drive from Evart to South Deerfield, Massachusetts, 900 miles. You make it 7 times a year for the next 7 years. On roll-down weeks, you and Marge each operate at a separate store, sometimes spending $307,000 each in a single 3-day window, buying over 300,000 tickets between you. Across 9 years in both lotteries, your group grosses over $26 million. Net profit, approximately $7.75 million. Before taxes, you declare every dollar. You are not the only ones who found the loophole. In Massachusetts, a group of MIT students, math majors running their own probability models, have discovered Cash Windfall too. Their syndicate eventually bets between $17 and $18 million, earning over $3.5 million in profits. The same rate of return as yours. These are kids young enough to be your grandchildren, working the same roll-down weeks at the same lottery machines, sometimes at stores down the road from yours. You don't consider them enemies, but their presence, combined with yours, starts attracting volume that's hard to ignore. In July 2011, the Boston Globe's Spotlight Investigative team gets a tip. Someone tells them Cash Windfall is being scammed. A Globe reporter shows up in South Deerfield on a roll-down week. She sees Marge behind the counter at a store called Billy's Liquors, operating the ticket machine herself. instead of having a store employee operate it, which is technically a lottery rule violation. Within days, the lottery suspends ticket selling privileges at 7 stores, including Billy's, including Jerry's regular stores. The Massachusetts State Treasurer shuts the cash windfall game down entirely and orders a formal investigation by the State Inspector General. You are suddenly the center of a news story about people gaming the state lottery. The word scam is being used in headlines. Your hands, which have been paper cut for 9 years, are very still. The State Inspector General, Greg Sullivan, leads the investigation. His team goes through everything: your purchase records, your corporation filings, your tax returns, your ticket volumes, your rate of return, the mechanics of the roll down, the mathematics of the strategy. They talk to lottery officials. They talk to statisticians. They look at every dollar GS Investment Strategies ever spent and every dollar it ever made. The investigation finds no manipulation of the machines that generated the tickets. It finds no fraud in the lottery draw itself. It finds no falsification of records. What it finds is this: the game had a flaw. The flaw was visible to anyone who read the rules carefully. And a retired man from Evart, Michigan, read them in 3 minutes. The investigators' conclusion: the Selbys did not commit a crime. The chances of winning were not affected by high-volume buying. They played the game exactly as it was designed. They simply played it smarter than the people who designed it. No charges, no fines, no criminal referral. Cash windfall is phased out in January 2012. The lottery imposes a $5,000 per day cap on ticket sales before it closes, a rule that would have made your strategy impossible from the start had it existed 9 years ago. You and Marge play Cash Windfall for the last time in January 2012. You drive home to Evart. The motel key goes back on the ring. The sorting piles on the motel beds exist only in memory now. Life grows quiet again, just the way you like it. By the time it's over, you and your 32 investors have grossed more than $26 million. Net profit, $7.75 million. Divided among neighbors and family members and grandchildren who'd put in $500 at a time. Children's college tuitions paid, retirement secured, nothing hidden in walls, nothing in offshore accounts. You still live in Evart, Michigan. Population 1,900, 1 stoplight. In 2022, Hollywood makes a movie about you. Jerry and Marge go large. Bryan Cranston plays Jerry. Annette Bening plays Marge. You watch it at home and say they had to jazz it up some. The movie adds Harvard rivals and community drama. In real life, there were no rivals worth dramatizing. There was just math and patience and a woman who sorted tickets next to you for 9 years without ever once suggesting you should stop. No arrest, no trial, no sentence. Just a retired couple from Michigan who read the brochure all the way to the bottom. That was your life, not a crime. Not a scheme, just the one skill you've had since you were 10 years old, seeing the pattern nobody else bothered to look for, finally finding the right problem to solve. And here's the question that should keep you up tonight. There was a brochure sitting on that counter for months before Jerry walked in. How many people picked it up, put it back down, and bought a scratch ticket instead? Could that have been you? Tell me in the comments. See you in the next one.